gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So Trump said something weird about immigration policy that I wanted to highlight because the timing of it seems weird. And knowing Trump, it's not necessarily an indication of any actual concrete policy, probably more just something that people were whispering in his ear about, and so he felt the need to speak on. But the timing of it is odd. So basically, he signaled recently that the ICE raids and the crackdown on immigration is hurting the farm industry and hurting the hotel and leisure business. Meaning that people high up in these industries, people who run hotels and farms and different facilities, are talking to Trump and telling him that they're taking away their employees, and that these are like long-standing, really good employees who are tough to replace, and not even necessarily people who are being underpaid or anything like that, although maybe that was the case at some point or whatever. Obviously, it's easier to get away with exploiting undocumented employees, so the fact that these employers were benefiting from that is problematic in the first place. However, Trump is now saying that they might ease off of the arrests and deportations of specifically people who work in the farm industry and the hotel industry. So that is bizarre, and it is a complete contradiction of his immigration policy from day one of the campaign. Everything that he said about immigration, this is a contradiction of it. Because if his goal was really to use ICE to do very targeted arrests and deportations of people that have criminal records, people who are a threat to others, people who, have slipped in and out of the system and are dangerous in verifiable ways, and remove those people from the country, they could have done that. And it would have not taken that long, because while there may be some people in the country like that, there's not that many. And instead, from the beginning, the plan was to arrest and deport as many people as possible under the blanket of these are illegal criminals that are here doing crimes. And so that was the whole premise from the beginning. And anybody who doesn't just, take Trump at his word for whatever reason knows that that is what his policy has always been. That's what mass deportations means. And if you have a skeptical mind, then you know that if he's talking about mass deportations, but telling you that it's all of these incredibly violent criminals that they're going to be deporting, and that is the focus of who they're going to be deporting, what he's telling you is that there's hundreds of thousands, millions of violent criminal migrants who are just causing crimes and committing crimes everywhere. That's just not true. I know there's a lot of people out there who believe that, but it's just not true. And if you want evidence that it's not true, look at the fact that the people that Trump is deporting and arresting and harassing, stalking at school, at work, at hospitals, they are by and large normal people. Even if you have so much hatred in your heart that you want them removed from the country because of some kind of arbitrary citizenship law, which most of them are somewhere in the process of trying to get straight, even if you are depraved enough to want those people out of the country, even if it means violating their rights and the rights of others, you still have to reckon with the fact that that is a different group of people than Trump told you he was going to be targeting and deporting. And now even he seems to be acknowledging that by saying not only is it hurting these industries like the farm and the hotel industry, but some of these are good people. They're good workers, reliable workers. I would argue most of them are. Most of the people that ICE has arrested and deported are decent, regular people. That's the whole point. This is why Trump has been bad from day one of the first campaign. He's admitting it right here. He's saying that our immigration crackdowns are going after innocent, decent, hardworking people. And we are harming not only the industry of this country, but the social fabric of this country. And the people, the very same farmers and employers who are complaining about the fact that they're losing their employees, are also saying that. They're saying this takes an emotional toll. These are good people. And, some of these are Trump supporters, these bosses, and I just don't know what people had in their head about what was going to happen with this immigration policy. I have talked personally to undocumented immigrants who also were supporters of Trump because they thought he meant he was going to go after just the criminals, just people who had some kind of criminal record or were dangerous, or that there was going to be some kind of way to reason with ICE and the immigration policy of Donald Trump. I have no idea how they got that in their head, because that has never been the case and that's never been the approach. But I guess you just have to have a certain amount of political engagement in order to understand that people like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, who admittedly was not appointed by Trump, he was appointed by Obama, but he has been empowered by Trump. These people are psychopathic to a degree that they do not care about criminality. They don't care about making the streets of America safe. That what they want to do is they want to get rid of as many brown people from the country as possible. And now they're trying to create an office of remigration. So understand clearly what that means. That is a departure from saying this is immigration customs enforcement and we need to go after people who are breaking the law by being here illegally. Remigration means they want to get people out of the country whether or not they are citizens. Remigration means removing as many brown people as possible. That is the purpose of that. That's why the word's different. Even to say mass arrests and deportations is not sufficient. Remigration is something different. So, at the same time that for some reason Trump is saying that he is going to ease up on certain areas of immigration, they are also gearing up to take a completely different stance on the idea of being an immigrant in America at all, like whether it's even possible to be a legal immigrant. And that goes back to Trump trying to revoke birthright citizenship, by the way. Some people forgot about that. So, in other words, this kind of waffle on this policy that Trump is doing, it contradicts the desires of somebody like Stephen Miller, who is responsible, at least at some administrative level, for the ramping up of arrests and these ICE operations that have incited protests nationwide. So for Trump to say, well, some of these areas, these are valuable people, we don't want to go after them, they're not doing anything wrong, that's a complete reversal of his immigration policy and what it has always been. And so I don't really understand what it could be that all of a sudden is coming up that he's reversing course on that. And there doesn't seem to be any indication so far that the policy of the administration is actually changing. So keep that in mind. This is just something he's saying right now. He says that they're going to do some kind of executive order about it. But as of right now, the indication is that policy's not changing, and they have no plans to stop the deportation of anybody that they have arrested so far. So they're not reversing course on anything that ICE or the administration has done so far. But in the future, he might introduce some kind of executive order to create exceptions in certain places. I mean, how would they even measure that? It doesn't make any sense. Again, it's a contradiction of the whole point of this immigration policy. The point of this policy is to go after anybody you can. So now he's trying to carve out exceptions. I just don't understand why now. And there is a possibility that the pressure that's coming from these protests is forcing him into a position like that, perhaps coupled with the fact that people in industries that do have a good relationship with him or the GOP, like the hotel industry or the farming industry, the combination of the fact that those people and, the unrest that's happening is about the same topic could genuinely be applying pressure to Trump. Now, we know that Trump's approach when it comes to protesters in the streets and movements like this that are making demands of him, his intention is to crush those movements. He does not seem to intend to want to engage with them or acknowledge any of their demands as legitimate. He says these are radicals, these are terrorists, we just gotta round all of them up and send them to CCOT. So that has always been his approach when it comes to protest and unrest in the streets, and this is not the first time that it's happened under Trump. However, the timing of this cannot be ignored because, again, the main thing that's inciting this response from communities across the nation is that Trump is going after communities. He's going after people who aren't doing anything wrong. They're hunting down regular contributing members of the community, and they're trying to remove them without any due process, without telling their family where they're going or anything like that. So that is sparking enormous backlash, not just in LA, but around the country. And as I've been saying, once that builds to a certain point, once there's a certain amount of unrest going on nationwide, there's only so much that the administration or anyone can do to contain that. And he's trying to make an example of LA and send troops there and say that we're going to have an aggressive response to this. But especially we're about to go to war with Iran and send them a bunch of resources, undoubtedly. And Trump is also going to simultaneously go to war with every major city in America. So it's entirely possible. I'm not saying this is what's going on. This is probably too optimistic of a perspective, but it's entirely possible that the protests are successfully putting pressure on him to the end of not rounding up innocent civilians and deporting them for no reason, in many cases to countries they're not from. And, definitely citizens have been arrested. Citizens have been harassed by these ICE thugs. The first arrest has been made in LA by Marines who have not been deployed because of the Insurrection Act. So the Insurrection Act has not been invoked, and yet you still have Marines on the streets of LA arresting citizens. That's a first. That's never happened before. So that's the state of things. And again, Trump and his administration wants to posture like they'll do this in all the cities and they'll spread this far and wide and they can do this, they can arrest anybody no matter who you are. But that's just not the case. And the reality is, if this unrest that is created directly as a result of Trump's immigration policy gets powerful enough that it destabilizes to the point that he can't focus on anything else and can't change the narrative away from that, that's going to create major problems for him. And even though the conflict in Iran with Israel is definitely taking the spotlight right now, even that, if there's unrest happening in the streets of America, that makes it much harder for him to do what Israel wants us to do, or focus on that as an issue, or just control the narrative in general. So as the situation is ongoing in LA and other cities, there's a protest today. The No Kings protest is happening. Now, this is a widespread and peaceful protest. I believe it was organized by some questionable people. And so the point of this protest is to make a large, peaceful statement, a demonstration of support for how many people, don't support the king-like nature of Trump's presidential style and the authoritarian nature of his leadership style. That's great, and I encourage everybody to get out there and participate. It's good to participate in peaceful protests. However, I don't really think that much is going to come of this, except for the elements of it that branch off and either confront the authorities or occupy the streets in some kind of unauthorized way, or create some type of disruption. Beyond that, this protest, I believe it's the 5051 people as well that helped organize it. And that's another example of a protest that didn't go anywhere. It's a good demonstration. You get people out in the streets. It's great. What does it come to? It doesn't come to anything unless you're putting pressure on the city and you're putting pressure on those in power. And I think it's possible that Trump waffling a little bit on his immigration policy is a sign that the other protests are genuinely putting pressure on him in a way that he would never, ever, ever want to admit. And the reason why is not because he feels empathy, not because he's being convinced that he's wrong, not even because he really cares about the economy or farmers or anybody like that very much. It's because he's realizing that they might not have enough resources to deal with the backlash that they're getting from this. And, it's not like Trump to admit weakness or want to show weakness in any situation. So we'll see if he continues with this, rhetoric about backing off on certain portions of the immigrant population? Probably not. But the reality is Trump has never said anything like this. This is a direct contradiction of the whole point of his immigration policy. So that's significant. I don't know why he's saying it. I don't know what will come of it, but I know that the timing indicates that this is the number one thing that is shifting the narrative against Trump right now, and it's very possible that he is identifying that. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm posting different kinds of stuff there, like podcasts that don't make it to the main channel, book reviews, movie reviews. I'm reading Catcher in the Rye right now. I'm probably going to review that on there. Also posting music early. I've got a couple EPs out that were available first for members only. Right now, there's a couple tracks on there. There's a freestyle by me and my buddies Wrecked and Psych, and there is a song, a remix of a Billy Woods track. So if you want access to all that, different podcasts and other stuff, become a member. And if there's other kinds of content that you'd like to see for members only stuff, then let me know and we'll work some things out.